They live 20 days until their death. They do the following thing. They collect nectar, pollen, water, and plant seeds. And I'll come back to my verse very quickly. And if you look on a honeybee, everything in the middle, which is kind of golden-like, those are symbols of where worker bees are there. All the cells that are around, they're kind of dead. Those are occupied by the drones. Please understand that. So when you look very closely, the drones and the worker bees. In what they do in swarming, each time a queen lives his life, the queen actually will the last act of life of the queen is to re-queen a new queen the next time. And re-queen a new queen. I also want you to know that in an emergency situation, for example, the queen dies for some strange reason, that queen may not participate in the re-queening process. It can be seen. But in most cases, they will actually participate in the re-queening process. And the new virgin queen will, guess what? What is the goal of the new virgin queen? Her goal is to kill every other contending queens. That's her goal, to kill every one of the rest of them. After a few days, she will fly in the mating flight. Will mate with about 7 to 14 drones who are on the surrounding cells, and will return. And after a few days, she'll start beginning play with one queen. She has already killed every one of them, and she lives on that queen. What happens if the returning queen meets a, I had something like that, hits a truck or something like that. Let's say it dies. Then a new queen will be introduced. That's the cycle of operation I wanted to explain to you. And if it cannot get to re-queen, eventually the whole bee cluster will be formed of the drones. And they will just die out one more season and never any more reproduction. I at least try to understand. Let me go back to my verse again, 1669. Allah says, then to eat of all produce of the earth, He inspires them, and find spacious path. And I'll show you how the path looks like. And thereafter, there issues from within their bodies a drink that may have a multiple color. Each color representing what kind of flower it may have picked up the pollen. And wherein, of course, Allah says there's a healing for mankind. And I'm not devoting on the death part, but let me focus on a couple of points to make this issue. Let me reiterate. The word was ahwa, wahyin, inspiration to find spacious path. I also want you to know of varying colors is that not only you are going around, you actually make an 8. While you are dancing, you also rotate and spin your wing with a speed that is going to give you a lot of information. So let me tell you how the waggle beam is that first of all, the bee makes a shape of 8 like this. And it keeps on doing that. I also want you to know that when the dance will take place, the relationship it has with sun, it's happening always in the daytime. The angle it makes with the sun. The rest of the bees that are watching the bee that is dancing, one who has seen the food, by looking at the angle between is omnichannel direction and the vertical that is with the sun. You understand? So if it's at 20 degree, the food is 20 degree. If it's 45 degree, the food is 45 degree away. Now, the distance, whether it's 1 mile or 10 mile or 5 mile, that depends what kind of dance it is. Let me also reiterate. So if the vertical is 40 degree, then it all means the food is 40 degree away. Now, I also want to, this is a plot, by the way, it's a fascinating plot. If you plot the duration of the waggle and the distance of the food source, it is precise. In other words, how long the waggle is performed, that will tell exactly how much away the food is. And at what angle it is done with the sun, that will tell you in which direction it is. So first it tells you distance away, and at the angle at which away it is. So do you remember, this is being done by that insignificant bee. I want to take you very quickly. While they're dancing, they have these legs. They shake. And remember, the shape makes noise. And the noise is actually coming from dorsal-ventral region, and that tells you the fast and the speed and the rhythm tells you the signal that is made. That will tell you also, even if the weather is inclemental. For example, let's say not a sunny day. The noise of that will also give information. Let me reiterate again. So if it's a round dance, like a circle, less than 50 meter. If it's a waggle, it's more than 50 meter. And if it's a waggle dance, like in this particular case, we'll actually give you the length of the distance. And that's not all. While you're dancing, you're also throwing food that you picked up. That way the rest of them keep on smelling the food, figure out what kind of food is there, how far away it is it something really I am interested in. So that's how this bee is recruiting the rest of the bees. I also please try to note it is that by moving feeder to different angles and locations, von Frisch found the number of waggles per run correlates with the distance, dance tempo, the noise it makes, slower or faster, and the duration of the dance, how long the dance lasts. And also, other bees follow, therefore, the dancer, the audience, eventually follow to the direction. Plus, one more thing. Short stops in which the dancer gives out food, and taste and smell of the food is what convinces a few things. So in a summary, let me try to rephrase before I go back to the verse. Direction is figured out by angle of the waggle run. Distance is determined by number of waggles per run, the tempo of the dance, number of circuits per unit time. Quality, the duration of the dance. And taste and smell, dancer gives free sample, the round dance, and only for nearby sources. And that essentially convinces all the information. This is a couple of charts. I'm going to kind of skip this in order to understand. I want to share with you one experiment. This experiment was fascinately performed at Smithsonian Institute only about some 10-15 years ago by Google. So this is how it was determined. Here is a honeybee, and flower sources are put at different locations. And they try to measure how fast and how long does it take for one bee to find there, and how does it take for the rest of the bees to find the location of the food. One experiment that I wanted to kind of tell you very quickly, that before I come back, please understand that in a hive, between nectar and pollen to survive, the nectar is about 120 kilogram and pollen is about 20 kilogram, and must have that very correct balance. They consume and store. And please understand one thing. They store more food than necessary for them, for the whole season. They store more food than necessary. Allah is saying, there comes from their valleys a drink of hues, varying colors, for the healing for the mankind. Have you thought of why do they overproduce? They will never make use of it. Because next year they're going for another hive anyway. They always produce a lot more than they will ever need for the rest of the season. I also wanted to kind of go one more thing. Have you also understood that the bees have been making their choice for 100 million years? They have been engineering their house. Do you know what shape it is? Hexagonal. For these 100 million years, the earliest fossil is about 100 million years, they have been building the shape exactly hexagonal. No other shape. It's not square, rectangle, triangular. So let me try to look a little bit mathematical before we go further. Of all the mathematical shape, the most optimized mathematical structure is maximum unit per area. Maximum unit per area. Amongst all of them, over every other choice, where there will be no areas left outside of the hexagon, and therefore it might store less honey. Hexagonal shape